What up, YouTube? It's your boy, A True Hero. Today, episode 2 of Yugi Talks. Our featured card is Trap Dustshoot. Trap Dustshoot is one of the most broken cards in Edison format. Actually, many top duelists agree that if there were two cards in the format that could be banned in order to make it better or more perfect, one would be Brain Control, and two would be Trap Dustshoot. But let's talk about what makes this card so good. One, the activation condition is very easy to be met. There's no cost. So as long as your opponent has 4 cards, you can resolve it. Two, Trap Dustshoot gives you complete hand knowledge of what your opponent has at their disposal. And 3, Trap Dustshoot can turn your opponent's hand from a broken one to a bricked one. For these reasons, Trap Dustshoot is an amazing card. Now, the thing about Trap Dustshoot is we need to know when we should side it and when we should not side it. So before talking about that, I actually want to mention me, Fraser Smith, and Kenny are all very close friends. For those of you who've been following the channel, you already know this. They have a YouTube channel called I Am Nerd Podcast. And on that YouTube channel, Fraser Smith has a video addressing the intricacies of Trap Dustshoot. Now, here's a little inside information. The reason why Fraser made that video was actually because of me, your boy, A True Hero. In our Discord chat, I was discussing with him about when I think Trap Dustshoot should be sided in and out. And in order to elaborate to the general public, he made a video about it. So now here is a True Hero spin on the card. Many of the points that Fraser Smith mentioned, I actually agree with completely. So let's get right into it. When should I keep Trap Dustshoot in? Well, generally, you want to keep Trap Dustshoot in your deck when you're going first. The reason why is because you have a higher chance to resolve the card. Although the activation condition is not hard to meet, you don't want to pull it in a scenario when it's dead, such as a top deck situation. So, when you're going second, generally you want to side this card out. However, there are some exceptions, such as when you're going up against monster-heavy decks such as Lightsworn, Christiasworn, Dragons, Frogs, etc. These decks you should always consider keeping Trap Dustshoot in, because the odds of successfully resolving Trap Dustshoot are very high. Other decks to consider keeping this card in for games 1, 2, and 3 are decks that play Pot of Avarice, because Pot of Avarice is a +1. Therefore, the odds of your opponent having 4 or more cards in their hand are very high. Lastly, the same logic applies with decks that play Gold Sarcophagus. And one of the best plays is to wait until your opponent adds the card from Gold Sarc and then resolve Trap Dustshoot. Because at that time, when you flip up the card, it almost makes it so that your opponent waited 2 turns for nothing. Even if they didn't Gold Sarc for a monster, let's say they Gold Sarc for another power card such as Cold Wave or Heavy Storm, Trap Dustshoot can still interrupt their plays, because that would mean they already have the monsters such as Rescue Cat that they need to kill you or put you in a bad position. So keep in mind, Trap Dustshoot is good against monster heavy decks, decks that play Pot of Avarice, and decks that play Gold Sarcophagus. Unfortunately, a lot of duelists don't keep this in mind, and they think very basically with Trap Dustshoot, as in, oh, I'm going second, so I should side it out. You shouldn't think like this. People who think like this are losing their opportunity to play a very powerful card in their main deck. So actually, I'm going to show you a video showcasing just this. Okay, duelists. So here I'm going up against the real Sasha Grey. And this is game 2. I won game 1. We're actually in a mirror match. My opponent is playing Diva Hero as well. And for those of you who do not know, I'm very good at the mirror match. Not to toot my own horn, but I almost never lose. Anyway, so my opponent is playing Diva Hero as well. And as you can see in my opening hand, though I went second, I kept Trap Dustshoot in. Why? One, because Diva Hero is an OTK deck, generally. And even in the control variant, Diva Hero needs a lot of cards in its hand in order to resolve the effects. 2, just like I mentioned earlier, decks that play Gold Sarcophagus, Trap Dustshoot has a higher chance of being resolved. So I kept it in. Now, let's watch how this duel proceeds. So my opponent, he Gold Sarks, I heavy, I summon Stratos. Stratos is able to run over his monster. And I'm in a really advantageous position because I'm able to set all 3 of my traps, which are Solemn, Trap Dustshoot, and Return. Now, on his draw phase, I Trap Dustshoot. The reason why I don't wait for the Gold Sark to resolve is because he Sarked for Miracle Fusion. And there's no sense in waiting, because with the current position that I'm in, I can actually kill him next turn because I have Return from a Different Dimension set with a Plague and a Malicious Banish, which means I can make 2 level 8s plus the Stratos on my field, and I'm not really too worried about my opponent responding to anything that I do because I have Solemn Judgment. So anyway, I flip Dustshoot and I'm able to resolve it successfully, sending back his card. Now, his hand is pretty much dead, right? Because before he had Dark Arm Dragon, which would have put him in a really, really strong position, because currently he has 2 Darks, and he can banish Mally for Mally, summon Plague, make Stardust, drop Dark Arm, set Wing Blast, and it gets really dark and dangerous from there. But everything was quickly thwarted because of the resolution of Dustshoot. But look at what my opponent says. He says, kept in Dustshoot going second. Now, once again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but if anybody knows how Diva Hero, Absolute Hero works, it's me. It's a true hero. I've literally been playing this deck for over a year, longer than any single Duelist and Edison format. I guarantee you, when it comes to Absolute Zero, I know what I'm talking about. And he's just saying, oh, like, why would you keep it in going second? It's because he doesn't have the right mindset. Once again, with Trap Dustshoot, it's really good against certain decks, whether you're going first, second, or third. And it's really good also against decks that play Gold Sarcophagus. So this Dustshoot was able to stop a Dark Arm Dragon, and essentially, I let all this go by, but the end result is I win. I win next turn with Colossal Armory Arm. And it's actually kind of funny because instead of just, saying GG, he's over here saying, some petty insults like, you must think your cock is huge. Like, no, that's just how the game works. So anyway, I Colossal Armory Arm him, and that's just GG. So anyway, that's one example of how we can use Trap Dustshoot, whether we go first, second, or not. Games 1, 2, and 3. Okay, duelists. The last thing that I want to talk about with Trap Dustshoot, and this is actually something that was not mentioned within Fraser's video, is how Dustshoot works with turn player priority. Now, I'm not going to get into too much of the finite details of priority because it's very complicated, and I definitely recommend everyone watching this video to read up on it. But what you should know, the opposing player who is having Trap Dustshoot resolved against them, it is their responsibility to declare whether or not they're going to use turn player priority. What that means is if your opponent has 3 cards in their hand and they draw to 4, then their opponent is allowed to flip Dustshoot. And the turn player cannot suddenly I'm going to use my turn player priority to reduce my hand size to 3 before Dustshoot is able to activate. That is not how turn player priority works. Yes, generally, the turn player is able to take the first action for each phase, which includes playing a quick play spell or even playing a normal spell, normal summoning a monster. It doesn't matter. The turn player has the right to do any action they desire first. This is how priority works in Edison format. However, with Trap Dustshoot, it works a little differently. Let me show you. Okay, guys, so here I pulled up the official Edison format rules regarding priority. As I mentioned previously, if you've never read this section, I highly recommend reading it. But we're going to talk about the section that specifically talks about Trap Dustshoot. So I'm going to quickly read it. Moving between phases, returning to open game states, and even building a chain requires players to give up their priority to activate the next card or effect. Priority can be assumed to be passed when a player proceeds from the draw phase immediately to the main phase to perform a normal summon without asking their opponent every step of the way, would you like to activate a fast effect before I move to the next phase? These shortcuts allow games to progress in a timely manner. However, when it is reasonable to suspect your opponent may be able to activate a card or effect at any given moment, it is good player etiquette to slow down and declare your actions and uses of priority. A player will almost always pass priority in their draw phase without formally declaring their intent to do so, making it an assumed shortcut that, unless stated otherwise, they will always be passing priority in their draw phase. If this is the case and you draw to 4 cards in hand and your opponent flips Trap Dustshoot, you cannot say, but before you activate the Trap Dustshoot, I wanted to activate a card, thus keeping me below 4 cards in hand, because you have established a pattern of behavior and are essentially asking to replay the last few events with additional knowledge of your opponent's set cards. Practice good etiquette. Be wary of your actions when you suspect a Trap Dustshoot. You are responsible for conveying your intent to use priority before Trap Dustshoot is activated. Thus, in layman terms, what this means is, if you suspect your opponent has Trap Dustshoot, you need to make an action before you draw that 4th card. So let's say, for example, in your hand of 3 cards, you have an MST or a Book of Moon. It would be wise to tell the opponent before you draw to your 4th card, I'm going to use turn player priority. If you draw to a 4th card, and let's say your 4th card that you draw is MST or Book of Moon, yes, you technically do have turn player priority. However, if your opponent flips up Trap Dustshoot, just as the rule stated, you cannot suddenly say, I'm going to use turn player priority. Why? It's because the way we play Yu-Gi-Oh! We don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! In a matter of, would you like to activate a fast effect before I move to the next phase? Because it would make the game take too long. So, in normal Yu-Gi-Oh! When we're just playing, we're not actually playing the correct way. Therefore, what you need to do is declare you're going to use priority before Trap Dustshoot is flipped. If you do it afterwards, then unfortunately, you've lost your player priority. So, you must always keep this in mind when you think your opponent has Trap Dustshoot. Now, I'm going to show you guys a video of this exact scenario where a player unfortunately didn't read up on his rules of priority regarding Trap Dustshoot. Okay, duelists, so now I'm in the middle of a set between Reading is Fun. Very interesting name. Now, we've made it to game 3, and I lost game 2, so I get to start. It's a really actually good game, and Reading is Fun is a phenomenal duelist. However, he was not aware of how turn player priority works regarding specifically Trap Dustshoot. Now, against Gladiator Beast, like I said, generally you want to side Trap Dustshoot out because it's a deck that heavily relies on setting back rows. But since I went first, keeping Trap Dustshoot in wasn't a bad idea. And one of my favorite combos with decks that play Gold Sark is when you Sark for Heavy Storm, your opponent doesn't want to commit their back rows because they're afraid of giving Heady. And in that case, it makes it even easier to resolve Trap Dustshoot. And that's exactly what I did. So I pulled in a Trap Dustshoot, I set, and I flip up Dustshoot. And as you can see here, we have a whole argument basically about how player priority works with Dustshoot. And he says a lot of really negative things, but the point is he was unaware of how Trap Dustshoot works. And you can see his end comment, right? Get educated and delete your YouTuber. I mean, I guess he meant YouTube account. Yes, although he had 2 cards in his hand that he has turn player priority with, which were MST and Book of Moon, if he was planning to use turn player priority, he needed to declare that he was going to use it before I flipped up Trap Dustshoot. His argument was, oh, you flipped up Trap Dustshoot too fast. But just as we read, you cannot use that as an excuse when your opponent flips up Trap Dustshoot. If you suspect your opponent is going to Dustshoot you, you need to declare you're going to use turn player priority before the card is flipped. Why? Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't played in the state of, I'm going to this phase, would you like to use or activate a card or effect? Anyway, duelists, today's video was kind of long, but I hope it was informative regarding Trap Dustshoot. As always, if you enjoy the content, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And last thing, if you know who Reading is Fun is, tell them to read up on priority. Take care, guys. And until next time, a true hero out. Peace.